You are listening to Stories from the Field by the Institute for Education Innovation, hosted by me, Doug Roberts. Welcome back to Stories from the Field, the Superintendent Podcast. Really excited to be here with my new friend, Dr. Frankie Pollock, who is Senior Executive Director at Houston ISD in Texas.
That's correct.
How you doing, Dr. Pollock?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Soon to be Dr. Pollock, maybe a few days.
Did I just awarded you your PhD?
Yes,
okay.
yes. That's fine. That's perfectly
Soon to
fine.
be doctor. Good. That's awesome.
A lot of late nights and early mornings.
Yeah. So let's start there. Like, what did you do for your doctoral work?
So my doctoral work is in actually the retention of Black male educators in urban school districts.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of the work that I've been a part of and seen that there's a need for male educators, Black male educators on different levels, including leadership, especially leadership, and of course, including in the classroom to be a part of the educational experience for children, regardless of the color or gender.
Mm-hmm.
But our research shows us that there's only 1.3% of Black male educators in our country, and that is far lower than the actual number of students that are served in our country. So that's just the research that I'm doing.
Great. This is one of these things where one of the things we want to do is kind of preach some sort of common sense and sanity around these things. I don't think you could feel how you want to feel about DEI and all that kind of stuff in the political world. But in the real world, there's nobody who says we should have, way less Black male teachers than we have Black male students, right? Like that just makes sense. And that's the kind of thing we want to sort of help everybody process about their public education system is like, these are common sense things. It'd be nice to see the representation of the students equal that in the teaching force. So
yeah, I think the main thing is about representation, and
for all groups.
For all groups, it's all about representation for all groups. I work in Houston area where we have a predominantly large population of Mexican or Hispanic, Latino students. So when we are walking classrooms and walking buildings, I'm proud to see the amount of representation for, that demographic of students and the leadership or in classrooms or in teaching in leadership. So as we look across the country, I think that it's only fair that we see that same type of representation for all students,
right?
All backgrounds.
Yeah. And so what are some of the solutions to this look like?
Right now, I think it is going back into understanding how to properly recruit for our different demographic that we're trying to focus on. And then once you have that group, how to retain them. And retaining that group or our group of Black male educators specifically really comes to training and making sure that group of individuals feel valued. Also, there are different incentives because we find ourselves in a area where we're the head of household. And if you're the head of household and you're not being properly paid, then you find yourself looking for other opportunities. So I think it's just understanding that the value, the incentives, and understanding the experience of the Black male educator, where it comes down to addressing and acknowledging what we call the invisible tax. For example, if you find yourself applying for a position to be a math teacher, but 50% of your job is being a guidance counselor or a disciplinarian or the guy that's called out of his instruction to solve the world's problems, and then being held accountable for data, it weighs on you heavier than if your colleagues are only having to focus on instruction only.
Right. Yeah. One of the things we talk about with superintendents is that, and other district leaders, but at our summit this summer, we're going to be embracing the side hustle because that's our economy now. And this is a way to keep people in the jobs, right?
Yes.
And it's more and more accepted by boards, communities, superiors. If you're in cabinet or other district leader positions, it's acceptable to go do public speaking, go do coaching. And so we're trying to help people figure out, if finances are a part of why you're considering leaving, there are ways that everyone will be actually thrilled if you go out and speak, represent the district. That's good for the district.
Correct.
And you can, make a couple bucks. Like that's a good thing. And so we're trying to kind of normalize that and not make it so hush hush.
Yeah, I agree.
Keep people in the job. That's what it's about. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, great. So I want to talk about your role at HISD, but I want to start with some work you did earlier. I'm fascinated by this. You sort of became a thing that you followed a kid around to understand the impact of policies. What was your role? This is in Fulton County, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was a principal at Creekside High School in Fulton County, Georgia, and I did a little bit more than follow a kid.
All right.
I actually became a kid that day.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, and it was a idea that stemmed from a conversation that was held with the superintendent at the time, who made a statement of, you should understand the experience of the students that you are serving. And what popped in my head at the moment was, I know how to do that. I'm going to serve as a student that day for a day. Schedule. Yeah. So I did some pre-work. The pre-work was go home and say, hey, kids, I need some clothes. I need your book bag. I went to my assistant principal.
Your own kids?
To my own kids. Yeah. I went to my assistant principal and I said, I need a schedule. Create me a schedule. And I said, I don't want to know the schedule until, that morning of. And it seemed like a really good idea until the day before, and I started getting really nervous.
Oh no!
Like I felt like a student on the first day of school.
Yeah.
But I played the entire role that entire day. I dressed up. There's pictures on, out there online. I was covered on Ed Week. And I walked in, I went to the cafeteria, I had breakfast. I had a little, of course, everybody taking pictures because they can't believe it, but I dressed the part. Yeah. I went through the entire schedule of the day, and I really did learn what was needed for our students to really better serve them. There was some areas of growth and some challenges that I experienced, but I also see some great things that were occurring in the school that I wanted to celebrate, and I continue to celebrate with some of the teachers. So from that experience, it shaped my perspective on the current student experience, which is different.
Yeah, right.
I mean, something as simple as what we believe as holding a cell phone in your hand. We just naturally grab it and kind of send a text. But when you're in school, we expect students to stay focused for 8 hours a day, disconnect, and only focus on us. And even I found myself, that was a challenge for me. Right. I'm running the school while I'm still a student, but at the same time, that was important to me. They have things that are important to them. So just understanding the student experience and being able to be empathetic to what they're going through throughout the day.
Wow. I can't wait to see those photos. Did the kids, they obviously knew, everyone knew, yes. Right? So how did they treat you?
Yes, I think it was also important understanding the fact that I had a very large high school. And while, for the most part, everyone knew who I was, I wanted to make sure that parents and students who were not familiar with me knew that there was going to be a grown man in school the next day with a book bag on. Yeah. So I
got laid back a couple days.
So I had to send some, communication out prior to let, parents and students know that this was going to happen. And the district was heavily involved. My district, at the time, area superintendent, everyone was very supportive of it. And then I started that day, and of course, you have a couple of jokesters that wanted to serve as the bully, as I'm walking through the hall. I'm like, who's poking me in the back of the head? I did end up in in-school suspension, for a short time because I couldn't find my way around. I was late to a class. Literally couldn't find my way around, but I was late to a class and they wouldn't let me in. So I actually had the full experience. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted. And that was just one day. And I was very exhausted at the end of the day. And I said the best way to describe that is the tenacity that our students have to do this, for 180 or 185 days and come out on the other end, So much kudos to our students. We don't give them enough credit for showing up every day. And even more than that, showing up with some of the baggage that they bring. We show up I show up as a principal, that's established and had challenges, but I could imagine what it would feel like to show up when you bring all the weight of your life and you're still expected to, be at the top of your game.
Yeah. That's great. It must inform everything you've done since, right? It seems like something everyone should do.
I challenge a lot of people to do that. I haven't seen it fully done, but I have seen some different efforts.
That's
at
cool.
it.
Great.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you end up at Houston? Tell us about your current role. And
So my current role in Houston is I serve as the Senior Executive Director of Instruction. And that role was really put in place by our great team of administration in order to assist with school turnaround and transformation. My primary role is to supervise the executive directors who supervise principals.
In the turnaround?
In the turnarounds, but it's actually school-wide where we have 274 schools total. I'm in the Central Division, which has 85 schools. And inside the 85 schools, we have units, and I'm over one of the units. And one of the units the unit that I serve is the reason why we were, for the most part, in a state takeover. There were some areas of some concern and challenges with the feeder pattern that I serve, and I was fortunate enough to be selected to serve in the role as a senior executive director and focus on instruction and leadership density.
Great. How did you get recruited from? Did you go straight from Fulton to HISD?
Actually, I was the chief of high school transformation in Cincinnati Public Schools.
Oh, it's Cincinnati.
Yes. So that's where me and Ira Netta Wright crossed paths.
She's also in this season of our podcast. Yeah. Cool.
Yes. And I was very fortunate that she saw in me from a high school principal that I had the ability to serve as a transformational leader for high schools in the city of Cincinnati, or Cincinnati Public Schools. And in that role, pretty similar, I was there to serve as a transformational leader for the 18 high schools in Cincinnati Public Schools.
Wow.
And we made some great growth and gains. We had goals that were set, and either we met or exceeded our goals prior to being leaving to go to Houston.
Yeah. You've moved with your family twice, 3 times now?
Oh, no, my family is actually still in Fulton County in Atlanta.
So you got to be away.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm on like a tour right now, a traveling tour.
People don't always know this, but a lot of people in educational leadership, particularly at your level, when you're in you understand the large urban systems, which are hard to learn.
Yes.
Folks end up living away from their families, moving, uplifting, kids and stuff. Like it's not easy. It's no joke to do this stuff. I mean, you guys travel around like ball players sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny because I was in Chicago many years ago when I think I was assistant principal at some conference, and there was a room full of superintendents, and they said, you have to understand, once you decide to take on this role as a superintendent or potentially be a superintendent, you will find yourself moving around. It's not a role that it is rare that you will find a role where you go principal, executive director, principal within the same school district. So
especially the larger the system, the more complex the moves.
Correct.
Also, boards flip, as we saw in Cincinnati, and so then that regime leaves, new people come in. Our hats off to you for figuring all this out and continuing to serve. And I heard you say that you're thinking about, someday you might want to be a superintendent, which is awesome. And we hope we're here for that and here to support that. But what, sounds like you love this work.
Yes.
Yeah. What makes you want to go do the top job and have to put up with because that's another layer of politics.
I understand.
Public facing politics, especially in one of these large systems with the big media, presence and all that.
I think at the core, for any job that we do in education, especially the higher we get in that, it still have to reach down to understanding our why is those students. Yeah. For me, I get joy out of walking up, past classrooms and seeing students engaged, especially students who may have been counted out, from an early age. So for me, that is my joy, and that also drives me. And I started as a music teacher. I was a band director.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. And from there, I had the opportunity to be a systems leader. As a band director, you are over more than just that one particular subject content. You're doing the budget. You're doing
and it's public
facing. You're always, it's a little political as well.
I was a band kid.
Okay, well, great. And from that, I took the opportunity to move forward into leadership and grow. And every time I move another step, I see more opportunities to have impact on students. So in the role that I've served in, whether it be now a senior executive director or chief of schools, I see that there's more opportunity to make an impact on a larger scale.
Yeah.
And understanding what comes with being a superintendent, as I have friends who are in the superintendent seat and they tell me the challenges, and I've seen it firsthand. However, I think that we have to understand that it's worth it for our kids.
Yeah.
And for me, the work is worth it. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Let's talk about mentorship. You mentioned Araneta right before, who was your superintendent in Cincinnati. What is that? What's been talk about a moment, maybe it's that or others, where a mentor sort of picked you out and said, Frankie, I think you'd be good at this. Like, how did that impact your life and your career?
Yeah, I would go back to Araneta Wright. And I think the first piece of it was just initially meeting her, our first conversation, and for her to see in me that I had the potential to grow as a systems or district leader from the seat that I was in.
You were a principal.
Because I was a principal, which could be considered rare. To go from the principal seat to a superintendent cabinet. Yeah. However, in that role, from what I was able to bring to the table and for what she was able to guide me through, whether it be situational guidance or, just me having a conversation with her, it kind of molded, me into the person that I am from the standpoint of being a systems leader. But also in addition to that, being able to step back and just watch. I've seen her in some challenging situations in Cincinnati, whether it be, with board governance, board management, or in our cabinet meetings, making some tough decisions as it relates to budget. Yeah. And those things are still with me to this day. Okay. Even as I move forward, I could still go back and say, I remember and I know, and I was a part of dealing with a large, multi-million-dollar budget cut. And I know how to approach this because of the mentorship that I had from Araneta Wright.
Modeling too, right?
Correct.
Just watching her.
Yes.
And then how do you see that, you're now in a position to support others, and we always want to pay that forward. And that's kind of the point of this gathering here, is to help each other, get to where we're supposed to be in our leadership journey. How do you see yourself as a mentor? How do you, identify folks that you can help bring up?
That is the part that I think I'm most proud of. I was told a long time ago, you measure yourself as a leader by the leaders that you build. And but ever since I've been in the roles that I've been in, I've had the opportunity to do more teaching than I probably did in the classroom, and more mentoring that I've done out in the classroom with adults. And I'm very proud of that. Whether it would have been in Cincinnati, where I would, take principals and guide them and give them some insight, or even here or when I'm in Houston, where I am over, a certain amount of executive directors, and I give them guidance each week or each day when I talk to them, when I'm walking with them and giving them some, some things to ponder on. And that for me is the most rewarding part of the job, is being able to meet with other leaders and give insight, see them put that insight in action, and then see the results from it. Yeah, One of the things I also say is I serve as a filter for my leaders. So as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of things that come down from the top or from the community that I want to be the filter to ensure that once it comes to me, I can take up things out that are required and hand that over to my team so that they can continue to work without being distracted. Yeah. And I think, I'd say as a good leader, understanding that when things are heavy on me, it doesn't mean that I turn around and make it heavy on someone else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to push that same mentality down, and it ultimately impacts students. So I want to make sure that my role as a mentor or a person that guides people is really to ensure that they're the best and that they can grow.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for all that you do.
Yes.
What was your instrument?
Saxophone.
Sax?
Alto saxophone.
Alto sax?
Yes.
You've been in Houston, what, 2 years now?
Yeah, 1 year.
A year?
Yes.
Have you developed a favorite Tex-Mex spot? That's what I think
Yes.
when I'm down there.
Cyclone Anayas. That's my.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite places. I was recommended by a colleague, and now I can't stop going there.
I know the food in Houston.
The food in Houston is that and the barbecue.
That's right. Thanks for sitting down. Appreciate it. Thanks
no
for
problem.
being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe and follow IEI for more stories at ieik12.com/podcast.